We are at the 76th annual Dyer County Fair. It's 2023, and I have the honor of sitting with the Golden Girls of the Dyer County Fair. And what I want to do, first of all, is just kind of, we'll start with Eddie and just go through, and we've got a lot of history sitting under this tree at Sargum Valley. And I want y'all to just, we're going to talk. I want y'all to tell us when your first year at the fair was, and who you are, and what, anything else you want to say.
Well, Eric, my first year at the Dyer County Fair was by default, I think. Sammy Bradshaw nominated me for the fair board in 1968. 1968. and I was new, young. Ann and I hadn't been married but a year, but it looked like it was something. I think Sammy could see we wanted to do something for the community, so he stuck me on here. It wasn't easy at first, but you know, I'm sitting here with some of the finest, not Golden Girls, but finest men in the world as far as I'm concerned. They all work hard at the fair just like I have my 55 years, and we just want to continue as long as our health will allow, and that's all I'm going to say for right now, but I got more to say.
Good.
All right, I'm Paul Finley. I was put on the board in 1980. Vernon Henson recommended me, and we all do this for the kids. I remember back when I was in high school showing animals, somebody did it for me, and I'm carrying that on. And right now, there's 3 generations of my family on this fair board.
That's got to make you feel proud.
I am proud. I am proud, and I'm proud to be associated with the individuals that's on the fair board, not just this bunch, the whole board.
Larry Gibson, 1969 was my first fair, and Eddie is the one that got me on the fair board, because I'm sure he told Vernon Henson, we need some workhorses, and I think he'll work. And so that's how we started out at the old fairgrounds.
Have you been mad at him ever since?
Well, at times. and my wife, of course, when we put somebody on the fair board, usually we get their spouse. If they're married, we get their spouse. They come and work too. Some of them do, some of them don't. But mine did, and she's been here a lot. I mean, she's out here every day just about. She takes care of the Family Living Center up there, and her plate's full. Her plate's full every day.
Johnny?
Well, I'm Johnny Dotson. He's responsible in about, and I don't remember exactly, in about 1982, maybe. I was headed to Dyersburg, and he turned the corner there on Unionville Road, and of course that was before we had a stoplight. So he flagged me down. He said, I was coming to your shop. I need to talk to you. And I said, well, okay, let's talk. He said, you've been nominated to serve on the fair board. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, just show up, you'll find out.
You'll find out.
So, and I've been here ever since. And I'm like Paul, you know, my mother was active in home demonstration club and community activities, and she made sure my sister and I were engaged in 4-H, and you know, and I use the exact words Paul used. Somebody was here for me when I was a kid, and so there's a lot of hard work involved, a lot of hours for us in this community to put this thing together every year. But I enjoy doing it, and I'm really here because someone was here for me when I was a kid.
I think Paul said, and all of us agree, that We do it for the kids. And one thing that, after I told Johnny that I wanted him on the board, I grew up, or Johnny and his sister kind of grew up under me. I watched them grow up. I knew how active they were in agriculture and in the fair business in the community. And that's the reason I wanted him. I knew he was a hard worker, and that's what you got to have out here. But I want to tell one little story. The first year he came to the fair, he worked 2 days, and we were in the office, and I said, by the way, Johnny, I hadn't told you yet, but you need to go buy a fair pass, because even though you're a director, you still got to pay to get in. And I thought he'd gonna quit that day. It kind of made him mad.
I understand.
So for a lot of years, they may or may not remember, but our old fairgrounds, old tin building and no ventilation. You open the doors up, I had barn doors on it, and it was 110 degrees in there. And my first day, and I was assigned entering crops, my first day. And he came by about lunchtime and threw a cold cheeseburger out and said, "Here's lunch." and then he said, "You got to make sure you buy your fair pass." I said, "Do what?" I've been out here for 2 days, and I got to buy a pass to get in the fair. He said, "It ain't over. Go buy your fair pass." So, and
How much was the fair pass then? Do you remember, Johnny?
it might have been $10.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
they're 15 now. I mean, 25 now, and we haven't gone up in 15 years on
yeah.
a fair pass.
Yeah.
And that gets you in the fair and any time during the day or night. Doesn't get you on the rides, but the people that work, they just love the fair and they buy a fair pass. We consider it a donation to the Dyer County Fair. None of us ever show our passes at the gate because the people.
Whoa.
You show yours?
Last night.
Oh, okay. They made you show it last
Yes.
night. Okay, that's
Well,
good.
we
That means
got
we run a tight ship.
We got some new gate attendants, and they're not all familiar with us. And
That's
I
good.
pull mine out every single time if the gate's open, I show it to them.
But your windows are tinted and they can't see it
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, I kind of want to talk about that. So we're different. I mean, if you visit other county fairs, and I think that's what kind of makes us special. So I want you guys to kind of talk about the history of why we're set up the way we are, because a lot of people don't realize that. We're set up totally different. We're all volunteers. Every fair board member is long, I mean, is as far as I know.
As long as I can remember.
So who set that up? Y'all have kept the tradition alive, but we are different and we are special in that, yes, we may work out here for 2 or 3 weeks in a row to get ready for the fair, during the fair, but yet we pay to get in. When we go to fair convention, for example,
We
don't-
pay for our rooms.
we pay for our rooms. We don't take it out of the
Other
fair
fairs
account.
try to find enough money in their fair account, to pay for their rooms. We don't do that.
Most every dollar that is made here at the fair goes back into the fair,
Reinvested.
and that's why, for the community, for the kids, and
exactly
I think
right.
that's what makes us such a premier fair. But give some history about that. I mean, I'm sure.
Well, Vernon Henson actually, he was the manager, and he was fair president back in 1957, and he was here until 1985. He passed away, and he kind of set the rules for me, and all of us abided by the rules that he had set. And we don't give free. We give the alderman and our county commissioners and our city alderman a pass, and they're the only ones that get a free pass. Any other passes that are given out, Eric, are bought and paid for by one of us or somebody on the fair board. If people, they see you give somebody a pass and they think it's a free pass, it's not free. Somebody paid for that pass, and that's what kept our organization together, and that's why we have done so well, Eric, because we don't waste our money. and paying for our rooms at fair convention is the same way. That was just a set way it was done when I got on in 1968. Who started it back years before that, I don't know. But Vernon Henson was adamant that everybody bought a pass. We lost some good fair directors because they had to buy a pass. And back then it was $10 or whatever. And
Almost lost one.
Almost lost Johnny, but Johnny
He stayed with us.
That's exactly right. You got to have a love for the fair in order to be a fair board director, member. And all of us, every one of us, when we moved out here, we brought our farm equipment, and Larry furnished us diesel, and contractors came in and furnished equipment and land movers. And I mean, it was just, it was fun. We all worked together. I mean, we had, we only had about 6 months or 7 months actually to get the dirt moved and get started. But we got started. We had tents and we had red gravel. But thanks to our road commissioner at that time, we built the road and he gravelled it.
Well,
And it was Grady Gentry, I don't mind telling. We got a wonderful road commissioner now that's been here for years, and I forgot his name. What's his name? Jeff Jones. He's been great. I'll tell you, he has been great to us at the fair.
so let's back up. I want y'all to kind of go back in time. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but I'm a celebrity in the fact that I showed the last grand champion hog at the old fairgrounds.
Well,
Didn't realize that.
Didn't realize it. Well, I didn't realize the importance of that at the time, but that's kind of my claim to fame. So I had the last grand champion market hog at the old fairgrounds.
what did he
But-
bring?
Well, that
You remember
Oh,
that?
$200 and some odd dollars.
that kind of explains things, because we were at the old fairgrounds really busy one night, and they were going to have a market sale. Floyd Sullivan was in charge of it.
Yes, he was.
And Eddie and I were doing
Yes, he was.
things all over the fairgrounds, and we sent his
He would-
wife Ann and my wife Jane down to the market, a hog sale.
I might have bought yours.
And when Sully got through, Eddie and I probably had to borrow money the next morning.
Sully
pay for
ran
that.
Ann and Jane up on every animal that
He-
came through there.
he
and
wore
they didn't
us-
know he was doing that.
No, he wore us out, and they didn't know the difference.
But I mean, Ann came home that night, and back then, what year was it? Do you remember?
89.
89. She came home that night and she said, "I spent $650
Yeah.
last night." I said, "You what?" But look,
we didn't have 600.
at that time we didn't, but you know, that's the way things have happened out here at the fair. We take care of others' kids, and they take care of our kids and grandkids. So that's what makes us so special and so wonderful. And I wouldn't take nothing for the experience that I've had in these 55 years.
Well, and gentlemen, just so y'all know, leading into that's the reason I'm here, is because somebody, like Paul said, did that for me, and that's why it's so important to me.
Well, let me tell you, Eric, how come you're here? Somebody, we were talking, Chuck Asa and some of the TV show people, and they were talking about, we need somebody that can talk. Somebody with a gift. Somebody that has a little knowledge of the fair. Who? Do you know of anybody? I said, one person.
And they couldn't do it.
That's my-
And then you went to the next.
That's how you got your job.
Yeah, I was about 25th on the list. But let's go back. I really want to hear. So what was the atmosphere, the lead up to us moving to this fairgrounds? That didn't happen overnight. I vividly remember the old fairgrounds. I participated in the old fairgrounds, and I know that was not something that just, hey, we're going to move. What caused that? Why are we here? Go through that and what that took in the process and how that all took place.
Well, of course, the city came to us and said, look, we got to have you fairgrounds, because they had to expand the cemetery. The Fairview Cemetery had to be expanded, and And our the old fairgrounds connected to the cemetery. Of course, it was city property. And that's when we had to get something different going. And Eddie and several others initiated that on the front end when they went to the county commissioners, and they decided to let us lease this area to put the new fairground in place. We've got a 99-year lease on it from the county from Dyer County. If I'm right, I think I'm right on that.
Well, actually, Larry, it wasn't 99. They gave us a 50-year lease for $1. And then after we had been here 20 years, they decided that they needed to change that lease or add to it. So now each 10 years, they add 10 years to our lease. So we will always have a lease on this property, fairground property. And that was a wonderful idea to do that. But I mean, it was really, really hard because we were at the old fairgrounds. We knew it was our last fair in 1989 when you had the champion hog, and we had to move, and we didn't have any money. I mean, we had managed to save $80,000. That's what we had in the fair account
To start up with.
And Pollyanna McClure and I built a model of this fairgrounds on a 4x8 sheet of plywood with styrofoam, and we shaped the hills and we made the roads. It didn't end up exactly like that model, but it's real close. And when we built that model, she went to Hobby Lobby and bought little trees, and we had mat board, and we cut the mat board and we glued them together with a glue gun and built the buildings, and we placed them out there on this thing. And the highway went a different direction than what we thought, so some of it was changed. Some of it ended up across the highway. But we took that model and we took it to the Chamber of Commerce on display. We put it on display, and it looked good. Believe me, I was proud of myself and Pollyanna for building that thing. And Mickey helped us, and Ann helped us, and we just we came together and built it. And we took it to the banks, and we'd put it in the lobbies. And when you go beg people for money, and we were begging, I'm telling you, we were begging. Because we didn't have much. And when they can see what you're talking about, it makes a big difference. You can go beg all you want to and ask, but they can't visualize what you're talking about. But they seen that model, and they all come together to help us.
When they finished with that, it looked like something that an architect put together. They spent a lot of time in on it.
A lot of time.
And it was a beautiful layout. And that's where they got the idea for us to try to do it this way, Johnny.
And I think that's an important point. The important point to make in that is, you know, we are a community fair. Now, yeah, there's a core group of folks that work hard to make all of this happen. Eddie had the vision as to how it could be laid out. But what is really important here is the support that we've had from the businesses here in this community.
The farmers played a big part.
And industry has supported, so I just, you know, without their help, as Eddie talks, that nest egg of money that the fair had in the beginning was just a drop in the bucket. As to what
We spent a little here and a little there. Harold Holt was state representative at that time. He got us a little state money on the livestock arena, $50,000, I think. And then Homecoming '86 committee, they raised money having a party out here, you might say, and they had a barbecue cooking contest with entry fee money, and they actually had the seed money to build the Family Living Center. And then Larry, we all talked. He he was in charge of the commercial building. He said, I can rent enough booths to pay for that building. So we went to the bank, and several of us, and we signed a note, and we had payments. Larry sold the booths, and we paid for the building that way.
38 booths in that building. They rent for $300 a piece. Sometimes I'm full, sometimes I'm not. Most of the time I am full, but the rent money that came in is what got that building paid for.
That's what paid
From
for.
commercial exhibitors or churches or community service, whatever. But before we go too far, let's go back to when there wasn't anything here but a big hill with a lot of ditches. And
It was a big pasture.
we knew we had to do something, and the farmers that are on this fairboard, we all talked, and we brought equipment out here, and I'm telling you, that hill was really high, wasn't it? It had drains washed in it, and where the carnival sets up was just a valley. And the farmers on this fairboard, and some others in the community also that maybe wasn't on the fairboard, we brought our equipment out here. We started on the first day of February. It was pretty
Rained
wet.
all winter.
Yeah,
We couldn't do anything.
but it was dry. It wasn't cold and it wasn't raining. And, you know, we had tractors we borrowed 2 tractors from Ford Construction.
Ford Construction.
With dirt pans.
2 tractors and 4 dirt pans.
Yeah, and the Hollingsworth boys drove them, and if you're familiar with the Hollingsworth boys, I don't know whether you are or not, but they're wide open all the time.
Well, now you're talking about Jerry Payton and George. Right?
Yes,
That's right.
yes.
Right, yeah.
And
Hollywoods.
And when there were other tractors besides theirs, I think I had one out here, and Eddie, Paul, Johnny, we all had dirt pans moving dirt. It was not done by a contractor by any means. But we started moving.
Moving the dirt didn't cost the fair anything.
No.
It was all volunteer.
Like Eddie said, I brought a fuel trailer out. Robert Skipson furnished a lot of the fuel, or most of it, and they were hauling dirt faster than we could smooth it. We had a bulldozer out there. That's the only thing we had was one bulldozer.
That's it.
And they said, we got to have something different. We got to have a road grader. We got in a vehicle and drove over to Pioneer Construction. It's now the location of the Dyer County Highway Department, but it was Pioneer Construction that was started by Mr. Alvin Hall. And then was, after Mr. Alvin deceased, Jimmy Evans bought it. And he still kept it Pioneer Construction. And I worked for him the first year I was out of high school. And I went in and I said, and Jim, a good friend of the family, I said, Jim, we got to have a road grader. He said, for what? And I told him, and he said, there's 2 sitting out there. I said, yeah, I saw them. I said, I'll get that old one. He said, no, you get that brand new one. I mean, brand new, just been delivered. He said, if you tear it up, Mike can get it fixed under warranty. And I said, all right, we'll take it over. I said, who you gonna send to drive it? He said, you. And he pointed right at me. He said, you worked for me before? He said, you can figure it out. I never had been on a road grader. I drove a dozer some for him when I worked for him. But
That's that bump in the road out there, by the way, y'all.
But 28 days straight, we showed up and we worked. We brought our lunch. The fair didn't pay for our lunch. We all brought our lunch, or we went somewhere and got something. 28 days straight, if I remember it right. It didn't rain. It didn't get below freezing at night, so the ground wasn't sticky. And we moved dirt, guys. We moved dirt.
Moved a hill, moved a mountain.
We moved a mountain. And on the 28th day of February, it rained us out, but we were done. We were done moving dirt. That's how it came about.
Then we had to get busy building buildings, or building something to say it's our fairground. And that's when the Vernon Henson Memorial Fund, Vernon Henson had passed on. We set up a memorial fund that bought the materials for the fair office.
Right.
We all got together and moved the baggage car out here.
How did we get together? We first, a house moving company.
Yeah.
We asked them about moving it because we knew it was going to be a problem. And they
It's
wanted,
73 feet long.
yeah, we knew it's the luggage car that you see up there. It was going to be a problem to move, and I think they gave us a bid of $10,000 to move it. We didn't have $10,000 to move it. And we went and got some dollies from Holloway
From
Construction.
Holloway
and-
Construction, got the Joe Dog and a dolly axle out from under a trailer. David Seaton was on the board and had a big crane in his business. And
Lowell Gentry had a crane.
had a crane that came out, and we literally picked that train car
And
up.
I had a backhoe that I brought out, and when they picked it up, I pushed it over and set it down on what you...
And then we chained it down, and Mr. Robert Willard was our sheriff at that time, and to get from the old fairgrounds to here with that 73 feet long, we couldn't make a sharp turn. So Mr. Robert blocked the traffic on 51 as you come off where Kmart used to be, and we came on the wrong side of the road till the first crossover that we get on the right side of the road.
Wrong side of the bypass.
And I was really afraid somebody was gonna get killed. Either the train car was going.
If y'all remember, when we got here, we had gravel just so far.
We got to the
And we got to the end of the gravel, and the truck spun out.
where you turn to go to the old highway patrol
Right,
station is
right.
where we stopped, because we'd moved fresh dirt in. Then it set in the raining, so it was muddy. And I never will forget, we got to there and just buried it. And Eddie said, well, we'll move it come springtime, you know.
Yeah.
No,
No.
we're gonna move it today,
So you brought your four-wheel drive
I
tractor.
went and got-
Eddie had his dozer was out here.
right?
You tied on the front, the dozer got behind, and we didn't stop till it was right beside where it's sitting right now.
We came to the top of the hill where the Illinois Central had laid the
And-
tracks for us.
Larry Callender worked for Illinois Central at that time. At the old fairgrounds, the car sat down on the ground for easy
We didn't have
access.
any wheels.
Didn't have any trunnions under it, but Mr. Larry Callender came out with his people, laid the cross ties, built the track, and acquired the trunnions for us.
The wheels.
Right.
So
And-
it didn't have anything under it at the old
No,
fairgrounds?
it
No.
did not.
Just set flat on the ground.
Now Eddie might be
Sit
able
down
to,
flat.
when I showed at the old fairgrounds, the office was in the middle of one of them 10 buildings.
That's right.
And I don't remember what year the baggage car showed up to you and how it was acquired.
I don't remember.
I think 1974 was the first year we used the baggage car for an office. It was between the family building and the commercial, old 10 commercial building at the old fairgrounds. There was a little bitty spot in there, and that was the fair office.
That was the fair office.
In 1974, how they got it out there, I don't know. I wasn't involved in moving it to the fairground. But somebody, Vernon got somebody
Well, if I
to
remember
pick it
right,
up
they,
and move it out there.
they pulled the car to Dyersburg on rail.
That's right.
And then I assume a house movement, but I don't know.
Yeah, probably so. Had to be Dude Pierce or somebody, but that's how we got the caboose, which came years later.
The caboose was delivered out at the industrial park.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we,
and,
Jeff Jones.
Jeff Jones brought track hose, and he had an old boom truck
yep,
and picked it up, and we put it on a drop deck trailer.
yep, and brought it out.
Brought it out here. Larry came back and extended the rail,
Yep, made it longer.
made it long. Of course, we
So-
had everything on it when we
That's
got
right.
it.
That's right. That's how the baggage car and the caboose came about. It was the office, the baggage car at the old fairgrounds. And it started in about 73 or 74 is when we started using it. But it was wonderful. I mean, it was air conditioned and it was just cool. It was real cool. And now it is about as vital a part of this new fairgrounds as anything out here.
Well, you
And
know,
it'd
when
sit there for 32 years until somebody, not calling any name, wanted to move it 6 foot, 72 inches.
Did you move it 6 foot up?
72 inches.
72 inches.
And I'm not going to call any names.
I'll
I don't
point.
know who did it, but
I'll
boy, it
point.
looks good.
That train car sticks out in the road.
And
It's
thank
a-
goodness Larry
it's an
Callender had built the
obstruction.
track long enough to do that.
It's an obstruction to people's view.
You'll have to admit, it does open up down here.
Well, it does.
It looks better.
But
It's
Bill,
wonderful.
but
That
what
new
you
deck,
didn't say is it took him 5 years
Yes, that's
from
right.
the first talking of doing that to get it
That's
done.
right.
Yeah, I'm slower than.
No, we're slow.
No, well, that's all. That's
I
on me.
told him 5 years ago, when you come out there and start to work, I'll come to help you. So it took him 5 years to get it.
But he fussed the whole time he helped me.
Don't blush, Eric. Oh, there's a little fussing that goes on out here, but it's all in fun.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we all
Absolutely.
kind of like lawyers in a court case. They fuss and fight, and then at the end, they all go
That's right.
have a drink together or shake hands, and it's all over. And that's the same way out here.
Well, the fairboard is like family. I mean,
It's family.
it's
It's
what it boils
family.
down
One
to.
big family.
It's part. I mean, we fuss like brothers and sisters, but at the end of the day, we show back up the next day and do our job and do what we have to do.
I want to trump you a little bit on your grand champion hog.
Uh-oh.
And I've thought about this several times since then. I was fortunate enough to be the last president of the Dyer County Fair
He was.
in 1989, and the first president out here in 90. But the last Saturday night at the old fairgrounds, that's when the public was informed that we would no longer be at that site, and it was raining. We were all emotional about the move, but it started raining. Did the drawing that night out of the back door of the office at the old fairgrounds. But it was very emotional for us to leave there. We all grew up there.
That's right.
It's
Now,
hard for the general public to understand.
It was home, and then it was scary knowing what we had in front
Right,
of us.
because we knew what it looked like out here right then.
Yep.
And we knew what we could afford and couldn't afford. But I felt over the years since then that how unique it was. It seemed like the good Lord was said too. He was crying with us.
Well, and I want you to know, I vividly remember that. It's funny you bring that up because to a young person, that was the only fairgrounds I'd ever
Right.
known. It was sad for me.
Yeah.
I'd been going there my whole life. You know
know,
what I mean?
Back then, school buses they ran on Kids' Day just like it was school.
day.
And they brought us out there, and at 3 o'clock, you better be back to that bus if you don't want to get left out there.
Yeah.
They carried you home.
That's exactly right. They did, and we have been very fortunate throughout the years. Many fairs have lost their Children's Day at the fair, but our school board has blessed us and see the advantage of the children getting out here. We have special attractions to educate kids about things. Agriculture, we've promoted agriculture probably as much as anybody has. We've got the fall days that you deal with the
Leadership Dyer County.
yeah,
I've been
And-
teaching that Ag Day for
and we
ever
bring
since it's been in
seven,
existence.
have brought, I don't know whether it still happens, 7th graders out in the spring and do stuff on the grounds, but this leadership class is carried to the grain elevators, the cotton gin. Used to carry them to a dairy, we no longer have any dairies. But this is people that do not know about agriculture.
Well, and that's while we're into that, I want to kind of talk about that's a century-old tradition that our county fairs are losing.
Right.
I mean, really, if you research it, the whole purpose behind the county fair and what got them going was back in the day, people wanted to come and they had a special soybean plant that when they were looking at the field, or a corn plant rather, a cotton
Competition.
plant. It was
Competition.
They wanted
New
to
breed of chicken.
and the big thing back then were mules and horses.
Yeah.
You brought your mule and it was going to outpull your neighbors and everybody else's. And that is a tradition that's kind of been lost, but it seems like the Dyer County Fair has done whatever it took to try to keep that alive. I mean, here we are sitting in Sargon Valley that recreates an 18th century town just to kind of show people what it was like. And every aspect of it almost promotes agriculture.
I see clothes hanging on the line.
Absolutely. But how
And
do
I'm telling
we...
you, Elise Jackson is the one that gets all of these buildings ready with volunteers that she recruits. And if it wasn't for her, it wouldn't look like it does right now. A lot of people instrumental in building. A lot of businesses paid for their own buildings. But a lease, I'm telling you.
For instance, the church, Sargon Valley Church, Katie Winchester built that. This long boardwalk building behind us that houses the jail, the general store, the doctor's office, the dentist office, the printing room. The fair built that building, and everybody that's got a city drug, Danny Debman, decorated the inside of the city drug. You get down to the end of the boardwalk, you got the old Dyer County jail that used to go to make a trip from West Tennessee to Brushy Mountain Prison in Middle Tennessee with prisoners
on wheels.
On wheels. It was a wagon pulled by horses, and it's right down at the end. First Citizens built the Sargon Valley Bank. Forkham Lanham built the stave mill, which barrel staves were big back then. Murray Moore and Dyersburg Funeral Home built the funeral parlor. The livery stable and the Sargon Valley barn, the fair built those ourselves because we wanted a livery stable and a barn. And the dairy barn was built by the Bell family, the Tom Bell family.
Tom and Helen Bell.
Tom and Helen Bell. And the church over there was built by the the school, one-room schoolhouse was built by the Yates family. And the log house, we got people to donate logs from 3 different houses or corn cribs or something, and we had a carpenter, and he numbered them and put all those logs back together and made the log house down here. But it came from Dyer County. All of the stuff did, and then the county road department put us a bridge across that creek. This thing is on a creek. And we built the top to make a covered bridge. We looked at moving the one at Trimble down here, the old covered bridge up there, which is in Trimble now. They moved it from the river to Trimble downtown, but it was going to cost us so much money to move that thing down here, we just couldn't afford it. So we built our own covered bridge. And then thank goodness, Jeff Jones and the county road department, they built us a good work bridge to get over here and do things. And on the hill, the first year we were out here, we got Dr. Pepper Pepsi furnished the materials for the food pavilion, and the Lake County Prison have a group that goes out on a bus, carpenters and whatnot, and they built that for us. No money involved. Huh?
Burke's Beverage.
Burke's Beverage. They bought the material for that food pavilion. The Vernon Henson Memorial Fund bought the materials for the train depot fair office, and the home builders, Dyer County home builders, built that building, no cost to us. First Citizens National Bank built the amphitheater for us. And I mean, Paul and Johnny and Larry and all the fair board members, we poured the concrete steps down the hill. We put cross ties on each side, and I mean, it just all came together, everybody doing it. And I told you about the livestock arena. Harold Holt helped us do that. And we took the old bleachers out of the old people's arena.
I was going to say, let's back up to the next major thing, and that was that livestock building.
The livestock building. We had the old people's arena at the old fairground, and it was all bent up on the outside, and it wasn't any good to move. It wasn't the right size. So we let somebody take it down. We took a torch and cut those. They were steel bleachers. And we cut them in 2, laid them on a low boy, hauled them out here, picked them up with an old drag line I think we had out here at that time, set them back up on legs, pushed them together, and Johnny Campbell welded them back together. And then we put new wood seats on them.
Kind of like moving the train car. We didn't let anybody know a lot ahead of time. And the bleachers, when they got loaded on that flatbed, they overhung a lot. We got things ready, then called the police department and said, we need an escort. And they blocked the highway again. And then, of course, the old seats on the bleachers were all to pieces, and they're oak seats.
They're oak seats.
We got good oak boards.
And we ordered the lumber, and Travis Walker and myself mostly spent several days in there drilling holes and putting bolts in those oak seats. Y'all may not remember it. I remember.
And Travis was never on the fairboard.
No. He just wanted to come
No, but
out
he
here.
did
and
a
He
lot.
just wanted to come help.
He did a lot.
And
out here.
that's what helped build this place, is people that just wanted to help.
Well, not only that, y'all done a good job of finding good deals. Just to let whoever's watching this know, if it's within a 5-hour drive and these men found out that there were bleachers cheap, we went after them.
Let's go back. Let's go back to
Johnny
the bleachers.
tell that story on
Yeah.
the bleachers.
Well, we had learned that Liberty Land, and I'm talking about our riding arena across the road.
And the amphitheater.
And the amphitheater, that's right.
Seating.
We had learned that the Liberty Land was closing up, and they was going to have an auction. And I hadn't been down there in years. I didn't know what actually they was going to auction off, but I knew that there was lots of bleachers at Liberty Land. So Paul and I got in the truck and drove to the auction, and we wander around real quick and said, well, now we can use these here, right? Yeah, I think so. And yeah,
And that all had to be moved.
and we can use these for grandstands. And so the grandstands, the metal grandstands across at the riding arena, we bought them. And Paul, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think we paid $1,200 for all of those grandstands.
We bought every bleacher that was at Liberty Land. Every one of them.
Now back up
Oh,
just
I
a
know.
minute.
I know.
They bought them. Then they said, guys, we got to move them.
And so it was, and it was
98, 99
400
degrees in the shade. They wouldn't let us go in with equipment on these old bleachers. You had to, I think we put a 45-foot flatbed trailer, a 40-foot.
We carried 4 semis.
Yeah, one of them was one of our fuel trucks that we
Johnny
got.
carried one, a 80-cent one. But that we had to get off the grounds by a certain time so they could lock up. And they wouldn't let us back in
5 o'clock,
till like
8.
8 o'clock that morning. We'd be sitting in the parking lot watching FedEx checks come in.
Yeah.
Every morning waiting, and they opened them up.
And it wasn't any battery operated power tools back then. We took torches, and we stayed on those torches all day long. Once you cut it off, it had to be carried out to the parking lot. You didn't just pick it up and load it right then.
Well, we had your backhoe and had Eddie's backhoe
Yeah.
down there, and we did carry the heavier stuff. But now part of those red bleachers across in the arena area were sunken in concrete, and all we could do was just cut them off.
cut them off.
And Tommy Reed was there, and when we got through and got back, he looked at Johnny and said, if you ever buy any more bleachers, I ain't going.
After the first day, it made me think about whether I put him on that fairboard was the right decision.
Well,
I'm gonna tell you, we started out with 14 people the first day, and they kept dropping like flies because it was so hot.
terrible.
I mean, you just can't imagine how hot it was. We'd walk out the back gates of Liberty Land every day, cross the street, and eat at McDonald's. And we'd take 30 or 40 minutes, we'd get back in there, and we'd go again.
So
Well-
one thing I'll add to that, and of course it's not here, so it will not have any historic relevance, but we came that close to owning the Zippin' Pippin.
He was the next to the last bid, and the
And-
reason he didn't bid again, we learned if we bought it, we had to tear all the
Wooden
material
structure.
down, wooden structure down, and remove it from the fairgrounds.
And I mean, you may remember, I leaned around to Paul when the thing was like at $400, and I said, Paul, that's a zipping Pippin. That's Elvis rolled in that.
Elvis's car was
Yes, and of course, what I want to do is just get 2 or 3 cars and load them up and put them out here. But then I leaned over to Paul and I said, "Did I understand him right? That you're gonna have to get it all down by whatever date it was."
Right.
Yeah.
And so I quit bidding. I was the next to last.
We'd have killed him if he'd have
Bill.
bought that.
After that fact, the person that bought it, when he learned they had to tear that down, he refused to buy it. And I don't know where it went after that.
It wound up, and I don't know the name of it. It wound up in Nashville. Some guy was going to take the cars and make restaurant tables out of them.
Okay.
And I do know that much. I don't
I'm just
remember
glad
who
you
it was.
didn't get it.
Yes, yes. 'Cause
But let me finish a funny story on Paul. Paul loves to drive a big truck, and he's really good at it. And we got everything done on that Friday afternoon, and so tired and soaking wet, and we take off to Dyersburg. I get out on the highway, and back then you got cell phones now, but we had private line radios on all of our vehicles, tractors and things, and Paul called me. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm on the main highway, I'm in front of you." He said, "You got to come back, I've had a wreck." I thought, oh my goodness.
It was a detour.
Yeah. We get there, and there was a African American 2 ladies in a car that was once blue, and it was painted orange, Tennessee orange, with a brush. That's what it looked like. And she started to go, killed her motor, and Paul thought she was moving. He let out on the clutch to go. Well, he bumped into the back end of her, and it put a dent about the size of a quarter in her plastic bumper.
One of the bolts held a bumper on. That's it.
I get there, and this nurse steps out, and then a nurse on the other side, and the one driving kept her mouth shut. She was driving, and the other one was just hammered on her, saying, "Hey, you look at that truck, you look at this, look at that. You need to sue them. You'll get a lot of money out of this. They ran into you." And I walked over to the younger one, and I said, "Ma'am, your license are expired." I said, "Do you have insurance?" She said, "No, sir." I said, "Do you want me to call the police?" She said, "No, sir." I said, "I tell you what, I'll give you $100 bill and you take off and go home." She said, "Pay me, baby."
Very word, she said, "Pay me, baby."
And folks, that's how God has taken care of us out here.
But she couldn't take off because
he
she couldn't
wouldn't
get her
start.
car started.
Paul backed up, went around her, we left her there.
You didn't want to push start?
No, we didn't want to touch it.
I did. I literally had to back up and go
But
around.
back to the fairgrounds, do y'all know of anything else? Homecoming 86 committee helped us build the Family Living Center or get it started. And with money they had raised, the commercial building, Larry sold places in there, booths, and paid for it. Livestock barn, $50,000 grant, and everybody working together to get bleachers in it and build on to the building. We had to put a little money in that of the $80,000 seed money we had. We didn't have much, but we had to do concrete out here. I mean, we had to pay for the concrete, and Forcum Lanham helped us a lot on the concrete back then. They'd send a yard and a half instead of a yard, charge us for a yard, but that's how all that got done. Now the amphitheater bleachers, we talked about that. We had just a minimum amount of seats in front of it at first, and then 10 years later we decided we're going to add to it. And it'll seat about probably 2,500, 3,000 people in the amphitheater now. And those bleachers those last ones came from where?
Liberty Land.
Liberty Land.
Liberty Land, what we hadn't used.
The addition to
Right.
the amphitheater came from Liberty Land.
Right.
They were all aluminum. That wasn't a big deal. Those big steel ones across the road, that was a big deal.
Right.
And having to walk out with them at
Well,
Liberty
and the aluminum ones going, after the Liberty Land bleachers got put up, then the aluminum ones, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, I don't remember, they were donated to us. We had to go get them, and again, I'm responsible. Larry's partly responsible, but we spent the summer over there bolting those bleachers back together, and so we really do have.
Well, now we've got on the aluminum bleachers across the road, so we've got Liberty Land, which amphitheater, and across the road at
On the
Riding
west
Arena,
side of
on
there
the
right now.
west side.
The red bleachers across the road came from
Liberty Land.
Yeah.
On the other side, there was two places we got those.
Well, that's
Right.
We got them from the racetrack.
Got one set from the.
One set from a
the
racetrack.
Right.
and everything else came from Crothersville.
true.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we have over the years been able to, and I don't think people realize that this fair wouldn't be what it was if we didn't look for those opportunities.
We're bargain hunters.
Absolutely, absolutely, because there's no way we could have afforded
No,
No.
everything
absolutely
that we
not.
got
No.
with the money that comes into the fair.
That's hundreds of thousands of dollars of bleachers that
Absolutely.
really just cost us a little time and,
And
gas.
we've got lots of aluminum planks. The food pavilion, the seating area, where everything we've had, picnic tables, stuff from the old fairgrounds, and well, it just was wearing. And we're thinking now more of doing something permanent, be done with it. So we had these aluminum planks that came
Come off the bleachers.
Now, they actually came when they reworked the football stadium at Dyersburg High School. They put in new, and they graciously,
They said they didn't want them.
they didn't want them, and they said, "Can y'all use?" Yes, sir. So
And-
that's what we put up in the food pavilion, are actually seating planks.
Johnny saw this vision of how they needed to be, and he
And,
had the base built for them, and
you
then
know,
bolted the seats to them. And it's one of the nicest food pavilions you'll see at any fair.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's permanent. But
Yeah.
if something gets spilled, it don't no stain. It just take a rag, wash it off, and pressure washer, wash the whole thing. Pre-fair, and of course that was we did that right after the pandemic because they used that building for vaccination during the pandemic. And of course, if it needs to be done again, we'll unbolt them off the floor, and they still use it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been a lot of love from our people that's never thought about, never wanted to be on the fair board. Our business people downtown, personal individuals like Travis Walker. There's a lot of those people have come out here throughout the years. And yes, we've done upgrades on some of the buildings out here that make them look a lot nicer than they were. We'll continue to make upgrades. It's just,
We've added to the
it's
livestock
love,
barn.
but one thing that we've got to do, as well as all the other fairs across the nation, the younger people, if they can't push buttons, they don't appear to be too interested. So we've got to start working possibly through the school system to talk to the kids and get them to say, look, this is what's always gone on. Crafts, paintings, and still derive an interest. The agriculture families are dwindling. And like you were talking about earlier, in the older days, the farmers were proud of what they had grown and their animals. And that's how all this came to be. Back in the 1800s, early 1900s, they were showing off their pride.
It's a dying art in other communities and towns, I'm gonna tell you.
I mean, it is, and education. As a farmer, and all of us here, sitting right here have been farmers. Eddie got to retire. Stays on me about retiring all the time. But we have failed our industry by not educating the general public. Eddie and I think Larry may have been there, one year when the United Farmers Organization was trying to get started. We went to Kroger's. We knew how much of our money was in that loaf of bread. And we explained to everybody, and we gave them that amount of money back when they picked up a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
The wrapper on a loaf of bread costs more money
And the
than the wheat does that goes in the bread. But the 7-year-olds, when we had them out there, the first question they were asked, where does food come from? Kroger's, grocery store. Well, where do they get it? So, I mean, and that's what we try to do out here is educate
ag
the younger
in the
children.
classroom, ag in the classroom. But not all kids are interested in ag in the classroom.
No,
so, but we've got to keep enough of us out there to keep it going.
Right, I agree.
And that's what we'll do.
We've got a lot of good volunteers that work really hard. I have to give credit for Paul and Johnny, how hard they work out here ahead of time. His son Brian, my grandson Jack came on the board. We're second generation of Gibsons that's on the board. He's here now, and I think Paul and Johnny both will tell you he's very interested.
Oh, he's a lot better than the first generation on the fairboard.
He can do more.
Well, he's actually really, if you look back, he's third generation.
Yeah,
There's,
he's third generation.
He's third generation.
He's third generation, that's right.
You were first, Tim,
That's right.
Amy.
Amy.
And now Scott. I mean,
And Jane's mother was a fair director.
okay,
Oh, well, that's four.
that's 4.
Yeah.
4 generations.
You know, I've enjoyed doing this today. It was Chuck Asa's idea. It will go in the archives 25 years, maybe 50 years from now. Somebody will look back at this and they'll laugh at the way we're dressed, the rocking chairs we're sitting in, and what we're talking about. I hope they don't. But I love every one of these men. I mean, we are a family. And I love that they know how to bargain hunt. That's the way this fairgrounds got built. And I want to welcome all the future generations to just stay the way we are. Not the way we were, but the way we are now.
Sound
Hey,
like it.
before we go, I want to do this. I want y'all to, you know, I can remember Dot Hurd at the old fairgrounds going up to the fair office to get my check, and that's a memory for me. And I'll have that till the day I die. And sometimes I think about, well, you know, that was my memory that I hold dear. You know what I mean? And wow,
Right.
I got my check at the fair, and so I want to go around. I mean, I could tell a story. You know which one I'm thinking about.
I know.
could go through and tell stories about things that have happened here at the fair, whether it was before the fair when we were trying to get it ready or during the fair. But y'all think back. We saw a video a while ago, and y'all talked about, reminisced about some people some that are not here with us any longer.
No.
But just share some stories about either current or past fairboard members.
I know what you're thinking. I know you're gonna tell it. You're not
Well,
gonna quit till you do.
I want to so bad. So
Pour it on us.
one of my favorite memories, and I don't know why it took me, but on Senior Citizens Day,
And that's a hard day here.
Hard
it's
day.
very demanding.
the tent was up there, and of course Larry was very good about all the times running the welcome wagon, as we call it, and he was picking it up, and I'm running around, and anyway, he's at the top of the hill. It's full. I mean, you could not fit another person on that wagon, and he's pulling it with a John Deere tractor, probably donated to us, and Larry can whistle really loud. And so anyway, he saw us, he opens the door, and he's telling us something that needs to be done, and he turns around and looks, and I mean, he had only pulled up from here to just a few feet away. Well, when he stopped, some of those old people started getting off, and he catches it. He turns around and whistle for us, Larry.
Come on, Larry.
Come on,
I
whistle
can't do
for
it.
us.
got
Yes,
to.
you
I can't
can.
do it now.
You got to.
I can't.
You
My
got
lips
to.
are dry.
Wet your lips. I want to
can't
hear
do it.
that whistle.
I can't do it. Y'all got me. But it is loud when I
He's
can.
in mid-sentence, and he kind of looks over his shoulder and sees him getting off, and he loud. He said, "Get back on that!" And they all just stopped. They get back on. And then he went on talking, and I have laughed about that for
Yeah.
years. It was just,
Yeah,
he
that
wasn't-
whistle draws attention.
He
That's
wasn't
for sure.
malicious about it. He wasn't trying to be. He thought, "Oh, if I've got to wait for all that to get back on."
Well, that, that reminds me of you talking about Senior Citizens Day, and we try to improve at our every event, and I was president just right after Paul, and again we had just got out here, and it was on Senior Citizens Day. And there was 2 or 3 of us that had the honor and privilege to serve like a couple years as president while we were trying to get moved and settled in. And anyway, it's Senior Citizens Day. And I was trying to be presidential and make sure everything was going good. And there was 2 elderly ladies, senior ladies, stopped me. And said, young man, when are the rides gonna start? Now, guys, y'all, they're 80-year-old ladies, and they want to know when the rides was gonna start. And I said, well, ma'am, look, and the night before Wednesday night is family night, and it's always a big crowd, and late when the carnival gets put away, shut down, and anyway, the little lady said, well, I would not have come out here if I'd have known that the rides were not going to be operating. True story. And so I told her, I said, ma'am, if you'll just hold on. So I went and knocked on the carnival manager's door, and I said, okay, you're not going to believe this, but we got 2 old ladies out here that want to ride the merry-go-round and the Ferris wheel. And so ever since then, Senior Citizens Day, the carnival has got a couple rides open for our seniors to ride. And in the very next year, a couple elderly ladies, they stopped me and said, sir, when are the food vendors going to open? I said, ma'am, of course, First Citizens feeds hot dogs and hamburgers and popcorns for lunch. Well, these ladies came to get a cotton candy and a candied apple, and my first thoughts was, ma'am, I'm not sure your dentures is going to allow you to eat that candied apple. But I said, so I told her, I said, ma'am, if you'll hold on just a few minutes. So I went to one of our concessions folks, Pope Concessions, been here for 30 years, and knocked on James Roy's door, and James Roy, you're not going to believe this, but we've got a little 80-year-old lady out here that really wants a candied apple. So I tell that story, to me it was funny, but we learn. It's a learning experience for us, and try to make little, I mean, that may not sound like much, but them little
That's
ladies came to the fair. They
We learn
wanted to ride
something new
rides
every year.
and have fair food. So that's what we try, and sometimes we miss the mark, but we learn from our experiences and try to make those improvements every year.
Got any stories, Paul,
Yeah.
that you can tell?
Yes. The best part of this week to me is Senior Citizens Day. Now, we've talked earlier about what we do for the kids, and I don't want to leave the impression that we don't care about other people. But since this area has been developed, and thanks to some of Johnny's family and Mr. Tom Bell, he brought us the meal Johnny's got us a pan, and we cook sorghum down here every day at Senior Citizens Day. But while we're over here cooking and working, these senior citizens are standing around, and you hear them talking back about when they were kids and their parents did that. And I haven't seen this, and so it's just so nice.
It's hard though. I mean,
It's
you go out
tremendous
and
amount of
you strip the leaves off of it when it's 98 degrees in the shade, and then they build that fire under that vat and start boiling that water and pouring that juice in that squeezes through that squeezer out there that the mule pulls around. If I had to make a living making sorghum, I'd charge $500 a cup for it.
Well, another
'Cause
wonderful
it's
story.
ridiculous.
Now, Paul should be the one to tell it, because one of the few times that I wasn't here for sorghum cooking day, and
Go ahead. You remember it because we've discussed it. Tell it.
well, that one year there was a guy came here that he could tell, and you never have enough help, ever, period. And this adult he had retired. He had moved from Dyer County, worked up north somewhere his adult life, and he had retired back to Dyer County. And he came out on Senior Citizens Day. And he saw that we didn't have the help that we needed. And he helped do odd and end stuff around the cooking pit. And when he left here that day, he says, you know, of course, it's an opportunity for folks to see one another they hadn't seen in 40 years. And so he said, I had the best time that I've had in a long time. I will be back next year. And thanked him for his help, and got him a little sorghum for him to carry home with him. So the very next year, I was serving on the National Soybean Board. I had been asked to come testify before Congress on ag stuff, and so I missed sorghum cooking day. So late that night after sorghum cooking, there was a young lady that came to the fair office, and she said she was here to get some sorghum. And the ladies up in the office said, well, we're sorry, but we can't sell sorghum. And the little lady that was insistent. And to make this story just a little short, all her dad talked about the previous year was coming back to the Dyer County Fair sorghum cooking day and helping with the sorghum. He was home on his deathbed with cancer. He was not able to attend the fair, but she wanted him to have some sorghum. So the little girls in the office finally called Paul and says, Paul, you need to try to come handle this. And she told Paul that story. So Paul made sure that he got some sorghum to carry home. So it's you ask yourself a lot of times, why in the world do we put that much effort, that much work, that much of our own time and money into doing things, and those stories like that
Yeah.
is what makes you get up out of bed in the morning and go do whatever you have to do to get it done.
You know, there's people here that volunteer, hard work a lot of times, and he kind of stole my thunder a little bit. He's past president of the American Soybean Association. That's a volunteer job that he was appointed to, and it took away from his family and his farm, but he traveled all year promoting soybeans, not for Dotson Farms, but for the American farmer in general. Brazil, Argentina, China, Russia, wherever he went. He goes to Washington still and testifies up there about, you know, the soybean industry. Paul here is a past president of the Tennessee State Fair Association. Eddie's a past president of the Tennessee State Fair Association. I'm a past president of the Tennessee Fair Association. So we volunteer for just whatever, I guess.
Well, and I think that's the whole reason we're doing this. I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of history right here. And yes, you volunteered, and yes, you've taken time away from your family, all four of you. But you've been involved, and in this particular incident, I mean, you're involved in everything, but in this particular incident, we're talking about the Dyer County Fair. But number one, that's why it's so successful, is because of that attitude you just talked about. And also, you're making a difference. We don't talk about that, but you've made a difference in my life. You've made a difference in hundreds, if not thousands, of people's lives in this community. Even if they don't know you by name, you've made a difference. You've made a difference to all of those people. And so we want to record this. We want to document this. We want people to know forever, hopefully, who was instrumental in making those differences to the people that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for y'all. Y'all kept the fair back many moons ago and made that. Y'all made a difference in my life. It was important to me in my childhood, and that's why I'm here. I want to carry on that legacy that y'all set, the generation before me has set. So for that, we thank you.
Before we leave, and Larry bringing up, we've had 4 Dyer County fair directors to be president of the Tennessee Associations of Fairs.
Which is a big deal.
It's a big deal, and that in itself is a 9-year term, each one of them. But when I was president, Miss Ruthie and I traveled across the state, and anybody that's done it and been here, this is not the biggest fair, but its grounds is the most beautiful fairgrounds across the state of Tennessee. Natural lay helped. Once we moved the mountain and the way it lays and the road outside and our parking area across the road lays, it's just beautiful. We have been diligent about trying to preserve grass. And I throw a fit when I see somebody make a rut. But I know how beautiful our fairgrounds is. And we're blessed to have it, but we have it because of visions of people like Eddie and our hard work to preserve what we have. And I'm very proud of it. We had visitors here from Middle Tennessee Monday night. And one of the questions asked me, he said, well, what out here is your favorite part? I said, that's a hard question. My favorite thing out here is our grounds. They just roll and lay beautiful, beautiful.
But
So
we've already heard in 48 days y'all could have made it look anything like it.
well, Mr. Jim Evans sent a man out here to run the road grader. Larry couldn't hardly handle it. And tractors was running everywhere.
Comes out.
And I was out there and he stopped, was standing on the side of the maintainer. He said, I need some more dirt right there. I said, well, just step off. He said, I wouldn't get off this road grader for nothing. He said, I don't understand. These dirt pans is just like bumblebees. They're going every which way. He said, on a construction job, you have organization. I don't know why somebody hadn't been killed. He said, but if you can get a contract to build a road across the state of Tennessee, y'all can build it in one summer. But he would not step off of that road grader to tell him where he needed dirt. And it's fun. It's fun. That's all I can say.
You know, that year we was doing this, we were clearing some trees. We had to clear some, And when we'd clear the trees, the ground was pumpy. I mean, you could walk on it, and it just sprang up and down. I mean, it was crazy. We dug ditches, we drained the surface water out from under the top of it. We poured concrete on it, and it's still here today. That was 32 years ago, almost 33.
Well, and we didn't mention this. I just thought of this. This was the old penal farm
Right.
Yes.
for Dyer
That's right.
County.
Was.
So that's why when the old fairgrounds, when the city said, hey, we've got to have it, and if you remember in the old fairgrounds, you get on the Ferris wheel, and when you got to the top, you looked over the city cemetery.
Right.
But anyway, when they said you've got to go, this was, believe it or not, a great location as we look back on it. But at the time,
It wasn't then.
it wasn't.
There wasn't
even
any.
really a road.
There
going
was a
through.
little 2-lane road, and it
No.
stopped at the county
No
farm.
utilities,
Nothing.
nothing.
So the
Period.
Dyer County Fair Association, with the help of the community, now let me
That's
say that,
right.
let's be honest about it,
That's right.
made this happen. And I agree with you, Paul. I think we've got the prettiest fairgrounds in the state of Tennessee.
Now, you're going to touch a little on the back side of this. The old fairgrounds. Gary Pate Hollingsworth. We've lost him. We've gone to heaven. His plot at Dyersburg Cemetery is where the swine barn was on the old fairgrounds.
I didn't know that.
And I
way.
bought one right next to it. Now, that's how people on this fairboard love Ferris. That's where he wanted to be.
What a good way to end it.
Well, gentlemen, that is a good way to end. Jerry Pate was one of my heroes.
Jerry Pate's one of a kind.
Yep.
One of a kind.
Gave countless hours to this fair. Well, I'm very thankful for you guys. I want you to know that. And I mean, it's not like you're going anywhere, okay? But I'm so glad we did this because I wanted to capture this. I think the community wants this remembered. When all of us are dead and gone, I hope someone pulls this back up
That's right.
and looks back
I
at
mean,
the history.
You think today, how would we like to go back 50 years and see a video of those people sitting around here like I mean, it'd be wonderful.
Well, here you have it. I'll say it again. The Golden Girls of the Dyer County Fair. They've made it what it is today, and on behalf of the whole Dyer County, every citizen that's ever lived here or will live here in the future, thank you. And thank you for your contribution to this community, not just the fair, but the whole community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric and Chuck Asa and